Well, it's time for our Focus 50 Plus segment. We welcome Dr. George Schofield, and good morning, George.
Good morning, sir.
And we are talking about planning in turbulent times this morning. So how do you start that?
Well, planning in turbulent times is really important. We actually need to be more planful rather than less planful.
How so?
Well, in the old days, we could plan because we had a job we wanted to go to, we had a marriage we wanted to have, we wanted to buy a particular house. Now look at where we are. Short-term planning is the only way to go. We have to have long-term imagination, but let's face it, the real strength is in short-term planning.
Is there a good place to start for people who may have never have done this?
Absolutely. The best place to start by far is taking inventory. So what do we inventory? The place to start with is money. Where are our finances? We need to take inventory of our relationships. Do we have friendships that can help us when we need it? And are those people connected in networks that will really make a difference? And third of all, do we have the right skills? If you're retired and all of a sudden you have to go back to work, do you have the skills to be able to do that? So short-term planning begins with that inventory.
Now, what's the best way to tackle the current inventory? Once you have it set up, do you just start typing what you can think of? Or?
Well, the best way is actually to sit down quietly with a pencil and paper to begin with. But I recommend people do it with someone who can be a sounding board for them and say the things that they really need to hear, because the worst thing you can possibly do is to sit down with somebody who's personally invested in you staying where you are and is personally invested in not hurting your feelings. So if you really want a sounding board among your friends, among your colleagues, among the people that you work with, by all means, pick somebody that you really respect, but it needs to be somebody that will tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah, very good information. And as far as any pitfalls, anything we should steer leery
Yeah,
of?
the real pitfall is letting your imagination run away and falling into the trap and the luxury of imagining your fantasy future as opposed to starting with where you are. Where you are is particularly important because if a surprise comes along, a divorce, you lose your job, somebody's diagnosed with something, you've got to start from a dead stop. If you already have your inventory done, you're ready to move.
All right, George, and you're going to be continuing this three-part series, Planning in Turbulent Times.
Absolutely.
Next week we'll talk.
Absolutely. Next week we're going to talk about imagining your future. After that, we're going to build a bridge.
Excellent. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
And we will be right back.